what's really come up in the research is that, and we did the first quantitative research in South Africa, looking at women on boards, what are the issues, the gaps, and are there unique qualities that women bring to executive management boardroom? And there are clear distinct differences. And in the words of my friend Dr. Renata Volkey, she says that men created business for men with wives. So the whole business world has been structured in such a way that men can operate in it very effectively, and of course they have a wife running around doing all the other support things that they need to be doing. So when you bring women into the boardroom, how do they cope with some of those issues? And perhaps many of us women wish we had wives too. But it's an interesting issue, and I think the other point she makes is that men have created the rules of business, which is really about playing rugby. And women walk into the business world trying to play hockey. And quite often we then wonder why we get shown off the field, or we don't quite, our shot doesn't get approved. But there's certain competencies that I think for women to be effective leaders, we need to close certain gaps on competencies. And those are gaps that are really competencies played in the game of rugby. And some of them is political astuteness, and very often we hear people say to us that I don't play politics. At senior executive level, it's absolutely essential. Negotiation skills, anyone who's kind of managed their career through difficult circumstances would know that that's a very important skill. Networking, how often are our male counterparts out on the golf course while we're getting home to feed the kids and doing other sorts of things. And being strategic about careers, often, and again it's been shown that women often don't think themselves worthy of being promoted into the next job because maybe they haven't had quite enough experience. Whereas men will say, thank you for the gap, I'm going to rise to the challenge, and they will take that challenge. Learning assertiveness and conflict management skills. How many of you as women, out of interest, shy away from conflict? Few hands here. But learning to deal with conflict and being assertive about that. Personal mastery and changing limiting beliefs, our own view of ourselves and our ability. In the research that we did, we actually found that there are certain unique characteristics that women do bring. Generally, women are less ego-driven. We're not part of the old boys club, and often that's an advantage. What's quite interesting in that research, and it really surprised me, and I personally did all of these interviews firsthand, was the fact that our sample, by the way, was a sample of men and women. And the fact that men were viewed to be more emotional in their decision-making than women, which generally, that's an unusual finding. But the point that they were making is that men as part of the club have to protect the club. So in making decisions and making tough decisions, and often the tough decisions around corporate social responsibility, governance, taking a broader view of the environment is the tougher decision. Making money is the easy bit. Making decisions, strategic decisions about how you put more margin into the business, improve the profitability of the business, is an easier decision to make. But it takes a more tough-minded, independently thinking individual to make the harder decisions around the softer issues. Women also tend to have more attention to detail. I think perhaps women, because of our often nurturing roles in life, the social and environmental issues, they're easier for us. I mean, there's a natural predisposition to be concerned about things like that. Be concerned about the kind of world we're going to be for our children. And I think that's, that is often why these items come up on the agenda and they're more often presented by women. On the issue of attention to detail, it's also quite interesting because a lot of men who've been on boards, they've been on them for a long time, there is a club, they know each other, the decisions made. It's quite scant in terms of the analysis that sometimes happens. Women by nature are more prone to drill into the detail. Now, when you have a look at what was exposed with the WorldComs of this world, the Enrons, the LeisureNets in South Africa, it was was only when people started probing into the detail did they start picking up what the accounting, what we call Chinese accounting, what some of those methodologies were in terms of people who were hiding certain things in the numbers, the way they were reporting the numbers, etc. So to pick up a lot of these issues, these integrity issues of what's going on in businesses, generally it requires a more detailed approach where something rings a bell and then drilling down into what is really going on here. And women tend to do that. Ernst & Young did some international research globally, and they found in listed entities around the world, 57% of all whistleblowers in organizations were women. So again, it comes back to this greater moral conscience, this greater concern about the broader issues that I've already mentioned. And yet the numbers are still very low. Nedbank and the Business Women's Association do a census, and they've done that for the last 5 years. And if you have a look at the numbers, women make up 51% of the population, 42.4% of the employment of those employed. Only 25.3% of exec managers are women, 14.3% are directors, and 7.8% of CEOs and chairs in this country are women. And that's a population of JSE-listed companies, as well as 17 of the large state-owned enterprises.